Today's top stories at NBR. Two businesses partner to make the tax system more navigable. The latest on keeping the next America's Cup Regatta in Auckland. Residential property valuations up 40% over 5 years, and there's more coming right up. Kia ora and welcome to NBR Today, a wrap of the day's top business stories from the authority in New Zealand business news since 1970, nbr.co.nz. It's Thursday, October 21st. I'm Paul Brennan. Thanks again for joining us. New Zealand has reached agreement in principle on a free trade deal with the United Kingdom that would give tariff-free entry to 98% of this country's current exports to the UK. In return, all of the UK's exports to New Zealand will be tariff-free. Dairy, meat and horticultural exports were always the sticking points in negotiations between the two countries, but New Zealand appears to have won significant gains. While tariffs will not be removed immediately for these products, extensions to tariff-free quotas will give New Zealand producers more opportunities to sell goods in the British market. Two businesses, advised by ex-Deputy Commissioner of Policy at IRD, Robin Oliver, are partnering to try and make the New Zealand tax system more navigable for SMEs and Big Four consultancy firms alike. Tax pooling provider Tax Traders and specialist software company Tax Lab both count Oliver among their advisors and shareholders, alongside another high-powered name, Deloitte's former senior tax partner Mike Shaw. The companies have been collaborating for some time and are conscious that closer integration will not only help their clients, but also their engagement with the IRD itself, something Oliver and Shaw have been instrumental in. The pair have their own consultancy, Oliver Shaw. Mark Dunphy's campaign to keep the next America's Cup Regatta based in Auckland could be rolling over the top of overseas candidates, with Kiwi Home Defence announcing it has increased its commitment from $20 million to $40 million. The committed amount comprises $20 million from the personal private interests of Mark Dunphy and his associates, as announced on September 14th, but now has another $20 million, which is being fully underwritten by Kiwi Home Defence on account of prospective donors. Those donors were not named. NBR lister Dunphy said a review of all publicly available information surrounding the AC36 Regatta in Auckland, along with summary information provided by Team New Zealand, showed that the $40 million would be enough to bridge the funding gap and stage the event in Auckland again in 2024. Dunedin-based automation and robotics provider Scott Technology is confident of further growth despite a Brexit overhang and treacherous border restrictions caused by COVID-19. Conversely, however, the pandemic is driving demand for automation in response to supply chain bottlenecks, as well as acute labour shortages in some of the company's largest markets. Scott today announced a 16% increase in revenue for the year ended August 31st to $216.2 million, while last year's net loss after tax of $17.5 million was also reversed in the form of a $9.5 million profit. Scott's recent strategic reset focused on what it thought it was good at, producing repeatable products rather than providing bespoke solutions to customers. It also saw the gross margin improve from 13% to 23% year on year, with Chief Executive John Kippenberger confident there was room for further margin gains. Auckland Airport is disappointed in the government's rushed proposed Property Law Act changes, according to the NZX-listed company's chair, Patrick Strange. Speaking at the company's virtual AGM this morning, Strange said the airport had offered rent relief to its tenants, totalling more than $185 million in the 2021 financial year, but on a case-by-case basis. He said such relief should be targeted at businesses that need it most and not at the multinationals that don't, and he urged the government to rethink the changes to the law and said they were rushed. The hot housing market has driven the average price for full residential property valuations up 40% over 5 years, sitting at an average of $851, according to CoreLogic. The property data and analytics company, which provides property valuation services, said the average cost of a residential long form or full market valuation in New Zealand has risen by 10% annually over the past 3 years. In addition, the average turnaround time for a full valuation increased 21% in the past 12 months. CoreLogic pointed to the country's booming property market and high levels of activity as being behind a surge in demand for full market valuations over the past year, in turn resulting in increased costs and prolonged mortgage processing times for many lenders and consumers due to a shortage of registered valuers. The full details of those stories and more are at nbr.co.nz right now. Tomorrow at NBR, Rachel Smalley's column is on the Mind the Gap campaign regarding equal pay, and Tim Hunter's Hunter's Corner on Vulcan Steel. The very quiet Achiever company announced it's going for IPO soon. I'm Paul Brennan. I look forward to being with you again from around lunchtime tomorrow for the morning's NBR trending stories. Then same time, same place, right here again from 5:30 tomorrow and through the weekend for another NBR This Week.